Despite one-sided coverage.
Applause for a narrow victory. Turkey votes yes to change its constitution.
It's been an introspective few months for some media outlets and the journalists working for them. Among the questions they've been asking themselves, given the rise of Donald Trump, right-wing populist figures across Europe and as far east as the Philippines are, why didn't we see this coming? And how do we deal with these kinds of voices, long considered to be on the political fringes, now that they're here? At the heart of what is termed an open society is the idea that if all views get a fair hearing and a platform is provided for debate, then individuals can decide for themselves what to believe and society can reach some sort of consensus. But is that really the case? Or does giving these movements a media platform grant them a degree of normalcy that tells viewers that intolerant, racist, or otherwise bigoted views are legitimate and of equal value to their opposite? Some interviewers like to push back with aggressive questions and counter-arguments, but it's not always a winning formula with those who thrive on controversy and confrontation. The Listening Post's Will Yong now on some of the questions media outlets face with the resurgent far-right demanding a place, its place, in the mainstream.
White people have a tremendous amount of power.
Islam en vrijheid gaat niet samen.
The growth of Islam should be one of the most disturbing things for everybody in this room.
Rising right-wing populism has given journalists around the world plenty to think about. Last year, just days after the election of Donald Trump in the United States, a letter appeared in a Dutch newspaper, signed by the chairwoman of the Dutch public broadcaster, NPO. She apologised for NPO's past coverage and vowed that Dutch publicly funded media would work harder from now on to include more voices, different voices. Many read this as a promise to give more airtime to supporters of the Dutch Party for Freedom, whose leader, Geert Wilders, has a conviction for inciting hatred against minorities and pledges to make the Netherlands ours again.
After Donald Trump's election, there are those who say this forgotten group of people who created such a surprise in America needs to be more visible on the Dutch public broadcaster. People who are often against immigration, against globalization, against the European Union. They say these opinions are not heard enough, but this is not true. These opinions definitely get enough attention.
I don't think there is a good argument for keeping them out of the spotlight. You have to remember that these people have huge followings. Because we have to understand, like, where is the support coming from? And, like, putting our heads in the sand and thinking that it's just going to go away doesn't work. The more light, the better.
But shedding light can also cast a long shadow. In the run-up to the recent Dutch elections, a full-page letter appeared in all of the major newspapers that seemed to issue an ultimatum to the country's migrant communities. Refuse to adapt, criticise our values, and you can go home. Behave normally or go away. The call was not from Wilders or the far right, but from the centre-right Prime Minister, Mark Rutte.
And that was due to excessive media coverage of Geert Wilders as a man and his party's policies overall. So Mark Rutte had to really adapt his position and his platform in order to make sure that he wasn't being outflanked by the far right. So he puts out this open letter saying, behave normally or go home. That's classic far right rhetoric.
The problem with Geert Wilders is that journalists are reluctant to question him forcefully.
Stel dat u premier wordt, gaat u dan uw toon matigen?
Ik was het niet van plan. Ik denk dat ik een hele redelijke toon heb.
They get starstruck and end up talking superficially for fear of being seen as a Wilders basher. They don't ask him about specifics because a lot of his ideas are against the law, like banning the Quran. He denies that the Quran would literally be taken from everybody's homes, and a journalist will be nodding instead of asking, how can you even suggest this?
Wat bedoel je daar dan mee? In the United States, the media profile of the far right has been boosted by a rebrand.
Please welcome Tommy Lahren.
Michael Cernovich, who describes himself as right of center politically.
Since Donald Trump was elected president, prominent figures from the so-called alt-right have been hosted on some of the highest platforms in mainstream media. Former Breitbart editor Milo Yiannopoulos gained notoriety for airing racist, misogynist and bigoted views and was banned from Twitter as a result. Does hosting him on a primetime talk show, as Bill Maher did, allow audiences to understand him better?
You say you don't hire gay people.
Oh no, you can't trust them to show up to work on time. Too much drugs, too much sex, they never show up to work, always making excuses. No, no, no. I mean, not as bad as women, but no, I don't hire gays.
But you know
that time on Bill Maher showed the offensiveness of his views, and to me it was the perfect example of why not letting these people slip under the radar is the best strategy.
I think you're colossally wrong.
A lot of people said, like, good for Bill Maher, let's have him bring on all of these alt-right people and sort of expose them for what they are.
Bill Maher didn't do anything to expose Yiannopoulos.
You're a
little
special
broken.
kind of animal.
He was chummy, he was laughing. He wasn't doing the work of a journalist. The kind of surrounding, echoing laughter, I think, really kind of sanitized it.
You're the only good one.
No,
You're literally the only good one.
Milo's politics were not critiqued or interrogated at all. The Bill Maher show became the Milo show. Bill Maher is someone that he wants to be seen agreeing with, right, because that normalizes him.
No, I love it. I get off on it.
From the convivial to the confrontational.
Look at these headlines. Would you rather your child had feminism or cancer?
Kathy Newman of Britain's Channel 4 News used her interview with Yiannopoulos to challenge him head-on. Satisfying perhaps for Channel 4's liberal-leaning audience, but did Newman succeed, or did Yiannopoulos get exactly what he came for?
One of the flaws that you saw in that Channel 4 argument is that I think it just fed this opposition that their supporters love.
Are we supposed to just soak it up and take it as one big joke?
You're supposed to treat it as it's intended and not wrench it from context.
You know, the question is, did it give off light or was it just heat? In that case, I think it was just heat.
Someone like Milo Yiannopoulos thrives absolutely on the confrontation. That is what they exist for. There is a point in that interview where Kathy Newman says, "You must allow me to speak."
I know you want women to log off the internet, but we are now in the Channel 4 News studio. You have to allow me to speak.
At that point, you've lost control. The host should be the one dictating the way that the argument, that the conversation goes.
Sunlight, so the saying goes, is the best disinfectant. Shed light on the views of racists and bigots, and the public will see them for what they are and reject them. But these days, as the media grant far-right figures the spotlight, a shop window, if you will, in the free marketplace of ideas, the market for their ideas only seems to be expanding, and journalists often seem to lack the tools to fight back.
The free marketplace of ideas, it is a lovely idea, but of course, as with any marketplace, there are imbalances. The media has a role to play editorially in who it chooses to speak and who do we choose not to speak. That does mean that some voices are marginalised, that means that some voices are over-promoted. It's a constant process.
If you're interviewing someone with extreme right views, you're actually giving him a stage in the media by doing so. In a society experiencing distinct tensions and movements, it would be absurd for a public broadcaster not to pay attention, because their objective is to reflect society. But there is a difference between providing a platform and being permissive, and it can be hard to draw this line.
All we as journalists have in our arsenal is facts. At the end of the day, that's all we have to argue with. It's frustrating because a lot of these groups don't respond fact with fact. They respond fact with allegation or fact with argument, but we need to stick with what we do. And we have to hope that at the end the public will come around.
Historically, free speech was never the speech of the oppressed. It was never the speech of those at the margins. It was always speech that reproduces dominant discourses. Why don't we try and interview undocumented migrants? Why don't we interview trans students affected by bathroom laws? Why don't we talk to EU nationals who are worried about the protection of their citizenship? That's protecting free speech by democratizing a platform, not offering it to the same old racist faces again and again.